All right, this is episode 17 of Writer's Block. I'm having some webcam issues. Basically, how I want to start the show is how incredibly incompetent I am. I can't even get my own fucking webcam to work for a talk show. I went to DreamHack Open Atlanta this weekend. Couldn't get a single interview. Just like next level, just completely unworthy of doing anything. Gaining any money through the world that is esports, even though, how should I say this? Rivalry ESPN and several other publications that I work for, I know for the fact are incompetent as fuck. And I don't care what the Esports Award says. They are trash. Okay.
Jesus, just like, that was a solid opening. That was like...
Oh, wait, you guys wanted to know how... I don't even, like, feel like explaining how, like, dumb I am. Just, like, I didn't know the whole first day at DreamHack Atlanta I could go backstage with the press pass. I didn't know how to, like... Also,
what did you think the press pass was for?
I don't know, dude. I just, like, went to the press room and ate snacks and charged my phone and, like, sat in the stands and, like, bothered players as they went to and fro to the bathroom. It's just like not the best time.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be like a normal. It wouldn't be like a normal bothering. Like, oh yeah, man, it'd be like good game.
It'd be like no, I had to like keep pace with MSL. You can't see me gesturing, but I'm like using the running hands right now. I'm like I had to compete pace with MSL.
2016 semifinal of Epicenter. Why'd you pick me in that Vito? Like just like who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah, if you guys worried about pro players like watching our show and getting inflamed, I guarantee you that they don't, because I introduced myself to so many people on the first day and they just like blank stare, just like nope, no idea, never heard the name Wallaby Beetle, I've never seen your face before, I've never even heard of Real Sports, which to be fair isn't that. That's the great thing about Real Sports. It's not as incredibly incompetent, but it's also not well known, so you know.
The tabula rasa.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Counter-Strike. Oh God. Okay. I'm just my mind, my Counter-Strike brain has just been fried. I was like anger napping for 3 hours before the start of this show, which is why we're starting a little bit late because like I just couldn't. I just like DreamHack Atlanta just poisoned my brain. Just watching Ghost and like Envy go at it for 8 hours was enough to make me want to quit. But,
Ghost is good, man.
Okay, here's what I'm angry about, though. I'm angry at the French scene, the Brazilian scene specifically, because when I think about it, it is just infuriating, because you think, like, oh, these teams are actually pretty shit. Like, think about all this talent. Like, actually, they even have new talent. They have a lot of good guys on these teams still. Like, some of them are washed up, but there's a lot of reserves there. But then you're like, how do I fix these teams? Oh, and then like that next part kicks into your brain. It's like, oh, it's impossible because of the terrible politics in the scene. Like, Lucas will never go to MIBR because his twin is Henny, and then Henny's an opper, but Fallen's an opper, and Fallen's like the head guy of MIBR, like he's the poster boy, so that will not, like, it's just all dumb politics that'll prevent it from happening, and I don't see a solution to any of these problems, so that's why I'm bringing you two. You gotta help me out.
Thank God.
Yeah. So let's start with MIBR. This is, I think, the juiciest steak to cut into. Why are they so bad? Why are they underperforming per their talent level? Why are they worse than NRG, who have like fucking daps 5 kills a game outperforming them? And I feel comfortable saying that out loud because I'm sure no pro player will watch this show. Like, why is they have so much talent with w0xic, Tarek, like great talent, and then the trio of Tarek. Trio of Colzera, Fallen, Fur. Yeah. Sam, go ahead.
Why are they so bad?
Why?
I don't know. Like, I can't say that I've watched MIBR. I didn't watch them at Blast. I certainly did not watch them at Chicago. There's so many best of threes to watch. I was not going to watch theirs. So I can't tell you what's going on with them at this moment.
I mean, we could talk in generalities. It's fine.
Like,
I talked 10 minutes about my horrible experience at Atlanta. You can say whatever.
The last time I paid attention to MIBR, I had noticed that they were one of the best teams in the world at getting opening picks, and they were one of the worst teams in the world at closing out rounds, which is super weird. And this was not with this was a storyline with the first Stewie 2K roster, but not people haven't really. I mean, to be fair, people haven't really talked about MIBR at all. So. But I think there's something wrong with the way that they approach the rounds. It feels to me, I would have just assumed that they're of 2 or maybe even 3 minds as to how they should play the game, like, and so they end up they're getting picks and like, oh, we should go here, oh, we should go here, oh, we should push CT, oh no, we should just fall back and play retake, like like just shit like that, because otherwise, I don't know, they should be fine. I don't think they should be the best team in the world. I don't know why people think that they should be. But like, I mean, because look at their roster composition; it's disgusting. It's the most gross thing I've ever seen. But in terms of their raw talent, they've definitely been underperforming now. Like when they first got Yanko, they were fine. They were like a top 8 team or something like that. But here they lost against FaZe, they lost against NRG, and then before that they went 0-5 at Blast, and it's like those are some really bad results twice in a row, and it's not a new roster anymore.
I mean, the results like roster. On paper aren't absolutely trash. It's
no,
like
now they are though.
It's relative to it's relative to the expectations. Like NRG are basically on the same level, if not very slightly above them, because of their NRG's best of 3 win over MIBR. But MIBR just has much better players and talent on that team.
I don't even know if I agree, though.
Yeah, in theory.
Yeah, because, like, I don't know.
You gotta
like
take
Cold Zero,
Nate over, or Ethan over Cold Zero. You gotta take Breezy over Fur. You gotta take fucking Daps over Stewie 2K. You're gonna take Tarek.
No, so pound for pound, they're a more talented team, but not significantly. Like, people talk about MIBR as people talk about MIBR as if they're like FaZe in 2017 or something like that. They're not. Like Fur is pretty good, but Fur isn't the second best player in the world. Cold Zero is still super good. Like Fallen's pretty good, but he hasn't been very good recently.
I mean, he's been very average this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, but for a bit he seemed like he was returning into form when Yanko first came around.
Well, that's because they played shit teams at that one event. What was it?
No. It was the 2 lines afterwards. After, yeah. No, I know what you mean. Like people are like, oh my god, he's back, and no, but he was pretty good. He was legitimately pretty good. But now he doesn't seem to be doing anything. Stewie 2K, I don't know how to judge Stewie 2K. Stewie 2K has never had very good stats, so whatever.
He's good, like eye test was. I enjoy watching Stewie 2K play.
Yeah, but so that's what I mean.
He definitely has his games where he's really sick.
Stewie 2K has never had very good stats, but he's definitely been an effective player. So fair play. Again, Tarek's fine. Like, it's just a bunch of fine. It's like, okay, seriously, look at the difference between the 2 teams. How far is Vitality off in skill compared to MIBR?
I've never disagreed with you more strongly at this point.
No, seriously, no. Like, look at the names. Like Vitality shouldn't be quite as good as MIBR, but it's not far off. Like so many teams are skilled now. It's like this isn't a team that has 3 of the best players in the world like they were in 2017.
I think that pretty nicely sets up what I wanted to say, which was that and Stuchu actually wrote an article about this, and Scott, if you're the most strongly disagreeing with Sam ever, I could not more third party agree with fucking Stuchu, who isn't here. He wrote an article saying how MIBR is just this team who doesn't essentially have an identity. There's no clear characterizing statement that you can make about their game other than just they're okay. In terms of, at least when you look at NRG, they don't have I don't know if you can directly match up Daps to fucking Fallen or Fugly to Tarek or something like this. But in terms of the way these 2 teams conceptualize the game, NRG is so much more strong and so much more defined and I think impactful with their overall structure and the way they want to get into a round. It feels like MIBR are just trying to play the round right rather than to win, you know, like they're just trying to make sure. And I think this might come as a result of like having all these sort of like big thinkers on the team per se, you know, because you have to think like Cold Zero, like Tarek was the IGL of Cloud9, Stu 2K, like it talks a lot. So you've essentially got these 4 very, very vocal and well articulated models of playing Counter-Strike. And I think when all of them call in the same team at the same time, just sort of like, he wants to pull this way, he wants to pull this way, he wants to pull this way, he wants to pull this way. And then suddenly you just got like this weird, like very vanilla, pretty like mediocre, weird sludge in the middle of it that I guess can win games. But when you come up against a more unique, fresh, fast, albeit weaker individually charged roster like NRG, you just end up losing a best of 3 to them. So, but at the same time, you can also take a map and pressure someone like FaZe, who might be more talented than you man for man, but lack that same structure as someone like NRG might have. So I think it can go both ways, but I think MIBR are just a boring team to watch, which is also why none of us have actually watched a full best of 3 of MIBR, probably like in recent memory.
I did this afternoon before my power nap, but I agree with you completely, Max. That in Stucci's article, basically what I got when I was watching them earlier was that they're pretty basic. What I always thought about SK and going all the way back was they're actually not that interesting of a team tactically, at least in like the 2017 period when I was watching, is what they do in the mid round and how they play out like post plants and late round situations. How they have like a very good fundamental system in terms, like I think Astralis, Gambit, SK in 2017 were very, very interesting in how they would play out. Maybe not interesting, but advanced or perfect or effective in how they played out late round scenarios. They, would win a greater percentage of retakes than anyone else in the game, it felt like to me. And I really just think that Astralis is just the only team really on that level anymore. It seems like the overriding structure right there with MIBR right now is good. It's just that the stopgap, all the extra things playing out the late rounds, the mid rounds, the garbage 2v2, 3v3, 2v3 scenarios is just not interesting, not exciting, not advanced, not perfect, not aesthetically pleasing.
And we made an episode about that. I think I remember very clearly talking about it, and we addressed, and this was before their MIBR, like I think before Tarek came onto the roster maybe. We were all just saying how much they fall apart in these late round situations where they'll just run out of time and they'll just like not come together, or they won't be cohesive at all. And then you're saying how this could be a result of like Stu 2K joining the roster and how they need the leadership. And Tarek comes into, in theory, like nothing. I feel like it's beyond just this specific roster. And it's like a very systemic 2018 thing overall. It's like an 11-month thing for the Brazilians. I
think they're also, I don't know if this is true. I think this is true. But I feel like almost the default way to play is the way that SK used to play. So if you think about like on T side, just like slow sort of default-ish, flush the CT's utility, just kind of like try to get a bit of info to tell which site to hit, maybe try to make a play in the mid round to get an opening, and sort of like, that's how almost every team plays now. So
it's called like a default style of CS.
Yeah, but a default in a more advanced way than you would have seen like 2 years ago.
Like old school. Who are the team? The NI team with Steel and
Power.
Yeah, iBuy Power. That's how fucked my brain is. I can't remember that shit anymore. But
iBuy Power.
I can't remember their name. I can remember their style of play. But it's like a very basic style that doesn't seem to have like.
But it's not that basic. It just relies.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit more advanced than. That's what my point was. That,
it relies, but what you're doing is you're playing on the enemy's expectations, and those players on SK were really good at playing on opponent expectations, like especially Fur, but also Fallen. These are key points of their identity. But when like I'm watching Luminosity play, and they're making the same plays that Phelps used to make on that SK team, a year ago, I'm like, oh, this is just the way that people play now. Like people have taken that in, And now people have way more have broadened their expectations of what's possible in the mid round and are much more ready for those kinds of plays. And I think that you're seeing players that relied on those timings and those expectations are being much less successful than they used to be. Like on another team, like players like Rain, much less successful than they used to be off the default. Like people are smarter.
Yeah.
Like people know what to expect a little bit more, and so your creative prowess is going to be stifled.
Well, I think they're just better at like dealing with the pressure of those timings, and I think there's more clearly defined reactions off of them, because you can anticipate certain timings and you can like anticipate certain ways the enemy plays, and you can still like be susceptible to that, but it's in how you react off that. And it feels like teams are not like, I agree with you. I think like teams are in general have a wider sense, and it just happens when you have like a competitive system and you have the maps, like for example, Mirage is the thing that I always think of. Like that map hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. And so it's like a really, really good anchor to see the evolution of styles on it. And I think just with any competitive system that has more people playing it at a higher level, because you have like everyone from the #1 team in the world to like beyond the top 30, like beyond the 30th best team in the world, all being able to commit to full-time play on like these one map, and they're all scrimming each other constantly. Like naturally just the ways you exploit advantages and the way you prevent those exploitations are just going to broaden, and they're going to evolve over time. And I think certain styles, and I think when you get beyond those like individual exploitations, it becomes way more like systemic as to how you win a game of Counter-Strike. And so like, for example, NRG can play MIBR's style in the sense that NRG can play that like mid-roundy, like look for info. Everyone has their own spots. They can play that, but then they can also call fast, explosive hits on top of that. And they can also pressure a lot on CT side, and they always have this extra gear. At least that's what I saw in the game, and that's how I think of these two teams in general. Like MIBR don't have that extra characterizing gear beyond what they just play.
No, but go back to my original point of disagreeing with Sam. Really, my original point the entire podcast, the raison d'etre of this podcast, to disagree with Sam. I don't think this MIBR isn't skilled and they're sort of a bland team in that respect. I think they're a very, very skilled team. It's just that their raw output in terms of their players now is so depressed because they lack these finer qualities, these finer points in their play, that they've sort of regressed output-wise in terms of their raw stats. It seems like they're a worse team firepower-wise than they are, because they're just not getting as many frags. They're just not doing as well in the game. But I think when you look at the roster, there's very few teams in the world right now that really stack up to MIBR in terms of raw firepower. I mean,
I disagree with you.
That's the premise of this little segment.
No, but for example, I don't think Fur is a top 30 player in terms of mechanical skill. But
he had a style that was very effective.
Right, but Fur was one of the best players in the world last year because of other factors, because of the way that he played. And now I don't think that you can play that way anymore, not as effectively as you used to. So I think that what you're getting is a player who's literally less skilled insofar as he can't do the same things he used to do. You see this with like JW. Like JW in 2016 and 2017 wasn't worse than he was in 2014 or 2015, but he had fewer tools available. People got smarter. And like JW is still a good player now.
Okay, I said that in my interview with him. Like, no, JW said that, like literally word for word what you said. Just like, I just kept. Eventually people, because it's not just the officials as well, it's like you're doing that same shit in scrims. Like people literally get picked by you in the same angle like 100 times. And they're just like 100% not only going to know how to not get picked by it, but how to punish you for that.
Yeah. So like how many kills does Fur need to get in Connector on Mirage before people say, hey, maybe we need to learn how to deal with Fur on Mirage? And and just in general, people don't play at least it seems to me that people don't play as much like solo man and Connector off a default on T side nearly as much as they used to. Teams like FaZe, and for FaZe and SK, that used to be a game plan. Like let's just put one player there and see what happens, and they would often get something done. Now I see that much less often. Now you get a lot of trades around that area,
No, it's all about
man
pace.
packs.
I think. Like, I think Mirage T side is all
Yes.
about pace now, and just being like, because it's not just phase. Because I think I made a mischaracterization of phase in the way they played Mirage. I think that's just how you play Mirage, like just like fast, and then setting like fast paced strats and like fast paced map control through mid as like the as your first plan, and then using slow change ups and those slow one man plays in con as like the change up to your default plan, which is generally just fast takes.
I'm not sure. Like I maybe it's because like before like an hour ago I was watching Luminosity play Mirage, and their Mirage was basically
like in the top 10.
Yeah, sure. But like their game plan was like Mouse Sports' game plan, where they would get like this setup. Let's set up Oscar on B site with an op and try. Let's see if he can get a pick off on the B side anchor, something like that.
Yeah.
I still think like I don't know. It depends on the team you're playing against, but like normally when I watch Liquid, the teams playing against Liquid don't go super quickly, and I don't know if that has to do with
get fucked.
Well, sometimes, or I don't know. I really don't like Liquid on specifically Elige. Yeah, I think Elige is terrible on Mirage right now because he's going window with an AUG and getting killed over and over again. It doesn't work. Stop trying. Like, it's not that the AUG is bad. It might be, but like, just don't go window every year. Like, anyway, sorry, that was.
But I think that the difference between me and you in this discussion is just how we define our terms, which is it's just sort of a pedantic little thing. But like, yeah, I think what we're saying is the same thing, that first stylistically or in terms of his play style is not having as much of an effect this year in comparison to last year, that he's falling off. Though I think he is a very capable player.
No, he's still a good player. Like, I'm just saying that it shouldn't be expected of Fur to be a superstar. And I think that people are looking at Fur and saying, hey, that's a superstar. But Fur's been a pro for 4 years, and he's only been a superstar in one of those years. And that was a very specific
the
style.
very original what was it called, Kaboom team, and then going into Luminosity, he was the leading player on that team, I think. And then he's always been the number 2. I mean, Fallen in 2016 was probably the second best player, would you say, on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and him and FNX were about the same. Like, maybe Fur was slightly better, but it wasn't it wasn't a very pronounced thing. But what I mean is that when you get very successful playing a certain way, it's not surprising that when you take that style away or it becomes much less effective, like you're just not like I think we were looking at this team as if they had 3 players like Fallen's second best player.
I really don't rate Fallen anymore. I really don't think that, like, I just think since like early 2017 he's just really not had the same level of like raw skill. I think that Stu2K is obviously a fantastically talented player. Tarek's a very talented player. Well, maybe I shouldn't differentiate fantastic versus very. I think they're both pretty strong players, like among NA's best players, top 10 players. I think Cold Zero and Fur are plenty talented. They were top 5 players in the world last year. And my counterpoint to your argument that FaZe can get sort of phased out by an increasing awareness of what he does as a player is someone like a Breezy, who seems, I mean, maybe you would argue that in time that people will adjust to Breezy and he'll be less effective next year. But I think that there's plenty of ways he'll still be surprising and dynamic as that sort of a player. I mean, Rain had a very effective year in late 2017 and early 2018 to a lesser degree, adopting a Fur-esque play style on the CT side.
Yeah, and look at him now. Like, so I don't think Breezy plays like that at all. So like I don't know what you see in Breezy. Maybe we characterize him differently.
I mean, it's a very broad. I'm painting with a broad brush when I say that. I think
when I think of Fur or Rain, I think of someone who plays slow off a default, trying to work a pick, right? Like that's I don't see. I see Breezy much more as someone who's part of an entry pack, leading the way and finding openings. And so, to me, I don't even know if there's a good comparison. Maybe FNX is a good comparison.
My thinking is on the CT side specifically, not the T side. I think if you watch Fur and Holy moly, Rain. If you watch Fer
Yes.
and Rain, they will be aggressive in how they like to push into traditionally T areas of the map. Surprise players, Fer famously with a MP9 up in brown halls on train or in bathrooms on holy moly overpass. And then if you or something like a Mirage, try to get into sort of ramp area, move forward while the T's are throwing.
But
the
meta's
utility.
changed on a lot of Fer spots. Like Fer, I think Fer used to play catwalk, and Fer used to play up into party on overpass, and both those both those spots are unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
let me just finish my point though. With Breezy, I think that what he is skilled at, how he gets his kills, how he gains that edge effectively, is the surprise he adds as a T player. Not so much as a CT, he's very different than Rain and Fer in that respect. But I think that he will surprise people in how he moves across the map, what risks he's willing to take, the aggression he's willing to put into a round in terms of how he positions himself on the map and how he moves his forward momentum, holding that W key, right? And that's sort of the broad comparison I'm making.
Like if we're going to talk about Breezy for a moment, I think that one of the better comparisons for Breezy on T side is Apex. Like maybe it's because I've been watching Apex, but I think those players are like I responded to your tweet calling them like soldiers, but it's because they play very risky roles where you don't like Breezy's task, whether he's feeling it or not, doesn't change. What he does is about the same. Like unlike Ethan, where Ethan plays almost completely off feeling, right? So, or someone I'd say someone like Amanek, for example. I think those players play off feeling, and Breezy just does the same thing, and it works pretty well. But Fer, I feel like works way more off of timing than Breezy does. I think Breezy's style is more reproducible. I think it's something that people have done since Counter-Strike was a thing. I just think Breezy's form is a little too high right now. It'll definitely come down. He's not a
okay. I'll make one more point and then I'll let Max speak. But I think the difference between an Apex and a Breezy is that Apex is more of a hard entry player, while Breezy will take. I mean, he is sort of that player for NRG, but also I think that he is more like an Amanek, as you were saying, where he will sort of make these pushes in the mid-round, leading a two-man duo into a site. Will be more independent in that sense, which will get, which can lead to some dividends. But Max, what do you? We're sort of getting to a very minute discussion, but
yeah.
The basic premise. I mean, you did disagree with me. You think that MIBR is a pretty middle of the pack firepower team, or you did say something about this earlier.
No, I think the I don't know if like firepower is necessarily.
It's a pretty
it's not removed from the system, you know. Like I think you have to have like a lot of things going at the same time that all build off each other to get a team that has like quote unquote good firepower. And I think it's not necessarily a matter of like stacking players that stylistically on paper make sense together. Because for example, like I think MIBR, even though, and Sam, you share my thoughts on this, like have a disgusting, like horrendous, like on paper roles in terms of how everyone should play off each other and knowing their natural tendencies. Like in theory, it doesn't make sense, but I still think it's a team that could work even in spite of that. And I think it's a team because of like this very ambiguous thing of firepower. If they can get their system right, if they can get their they can find specific ways to
take rounds, like have a
reproducible
method of advancing throughout the map.
Yeah, and one that isn't that's to them and not to their conceptions of the game, because there's like a split between how they think they should play the game and how the reality of all the players and how they actually make impact in the round. There's a gap there between, like, they all agree probably, like, if you were to look back over their demos, I'm sure all 5 of them could sit there and very, very, very effectively go over step by step where their current plan is working, where it's not. And I think a lot of the times they would sit down and do that, they would think, oh, like, how are we losing these rounds? You know, it's like we're just getting out-dueled here, or we're not being able to find the trade in this specific position. But I think it's like it's more systemic than just like fixing up those little holes in the game and just like, oh yeah, if we just like patch this up here and we just like add a new strat over here, or if it's like, oh, if you just start doing this certain aid to like get more up to date with this meta. I think it's way more systemic than that in terms of how MIBR like actually conceptualize themselves as a team. And that's why I was sort of excited when Yenko came in, because I was like, maybe he can like be this oracle figure that's just like, yes, it's fallen, you need to frag in the late round again, my friend. And he like hands him some paper mache orb or something. I don't know, but like, yeah, I think it's a very, very systemic issue that like informs the lack of firepower, but isn't like necessarily.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
But when I say they lack firepower, it was specifically in response to the expectations that Scott was setting on them. Like the way that people talk about MIBR, they talk about them as if they were the team that won Epicenter 2017, and that we're looking like they were going to be the best team in the world. I'm saying that if you really look at their roster, I don't think that you should expect them to be the best team in the world unless they have something that goes far beyond their firepower, which is completely plausible. But I don't think that given their roster, you should expect that they be some elite team. As to their identity, I think that one of the problems they have is, I mean, this might be why the Yenko move was a bit misguided, is that like you already have 4 players on that team that were in-game leaders in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So, and you have... And that's why I was saying, like, maybe you have 2 or 3, you have a lot of minds. And when you add a coach, either that coach is going to be able to set his mind and make everyone bow to him, and so they become focused, or there's just one other mind.
You add a 5th brain to the swamp of different ideas.
And so, like, I think is that really MIBR should just shut their brain off and just play like fucking in-game leader, in-game lead like Nico is in-game.
I think this is the exact same thing we arrived at way back when we did like episode 4 of the show, way back when they still had Taco. That this is like...
Oh yeah, I
no, did they have Taco or Bolts?
This is like 3 days before they removed Taco and Bolts. Before they removed Taco. Taco was moved first, Bolts was removed second. At the time, you guys disagreed that we need a roster change. I actually thought they should remove Taco because I was watching those WESG games and he was just like dog shit, 3 frags a map.
I remember that overpass game. Yeah,
dude, it was rough.
It was a really bad game.
That'll be seared into my memory forever. I know exactly what you're talking about, Sam. But I see a lot of this on... maybe this is just me being like an angry fucking Twitter warrior, but like I see this a lot now. This is like... Just shit on Twitter gets me so fucking triggered nowadays. But like, I see people like, should never remove Taco. Like, I thought removing Taco was a very legitimate move at the time because they were faltering pretty hard as a team, much more than they are now. I think they've reached a pretty consistent level, if not world-beating.
Well, before their last 2 lands have been disastrous. But before those last 2 lands, they were a reasonably fine team.
In the totality, as you look back through this lineup going since Tarek, I think they've been a much more stable team than they were at the end of their run with Taco. But Taco was a real drag on that team. I just think the problem was they didn't pick up the right player. Or like I don't theoretically have a problem with them going international. I think the whole language issue is just sort of a scapegoat idea to discuss a much more intricate or difficult problem that they're having with their styles and the players and the roles. But I don't know. What do you guys think about Taco being removed? Do you think that was like the domino that like fucked them over? Because people see Taco doing so well with Liquid and him sort of... I mean, people even... I mean, you go the other way and be like, Taco's hella overrated and the whole support role thing is just like a fucking meme. It's just a feel good teamwork makes the dream work bullshit thing. But people see him doing well and it's like, oh, so MIBR or SK at the time just fucked up and they made this huge mistake. Max, you want to tackle this or Sam?
No.
I'll let Sam and then.
Yeah. Taco is a really good player, but I don't know if he's overrated, but I do that it made sense to kick him in context because the way that if you're playing a bunch of roles where you're getting killed a bunch of times, it really matters how you feel your teammates think about you, because you can only withstand that psychologically, like that psychological damage to your confidence, if your teammates are reinforcing you and saying, "No, it's fine. You know, we're winning. You're great, Taco. It's good." But when you're losing and you're constantly dying, that team clearly turned on him, and they were like, "Okay, well, we need to make a change. I'm sick. You're sick. You're sick. Bolts was sick not long ago, so you're the odd man out." And and I think Taco at that time admitted that he just had no confidence. And it takes him going to another team that's much worse, where they're like, "Oh my God, Taco, we got Taco," and all that. And that's great. And so he can get his confidence back. So like the way Taco is playing now, he would not have played this way if he had stayed with SK at the time. But part of me really thinks that MIBR, it was doomed to fail. Like if I look at the game now and I look at them after the major, I don't see a world in which they stay a top 3 team. I don't see a world in which they're better than this Team Liquid. I guess maybe if they don't kick Taco, Team Liquid isn't as good as they are. But otherwise, like the way the teams are playing now, I just think is it's just another level. And so I think that this is a team that was great for the time, just like Fnatic was great for the time. But you gotta change your game. Like look at the way the NIP is playing now, and look at the way Fnatic is playing now. It's radically different from the way they were playing, 3 years ago. And I think that you're just gonna need to, maybe it takes breaking apart that core, right? But I think that you're gonna need to have to make a radical change in the way you see the game before you see any comparable degree of success from that roster.
You're like, there's this tiny little part of me, Sam, that's just like always been itchy for like someone to just like reaffirm the narrative that I like silently push about like outdated teams not fitting in the current meta, and you're just like, yes, it's like that's so hard, dude. I could not agree more with you. Like I think there is 100% an expiry date on certain teams if they don't take certain steps to like stay relevant in the current meta, and that's why in my mind Astralis is so revolutionary as and this is going to be a segment where I like make comparisons to Astralis, which is unreasonable, but when you look at them, it's like they can stay relevant because they like focus on innovation and like taking time off and all these certain things that like MIBR never do. Like when you think of SK Gaming in 2016, 2017, like you're talking about the team that had like the fucking most series played of the year, and they do all these things that seem to be like on the premise of them being elite superstar players and being the best at what they do. And it's like, all right, well, we are the best team in the world. So obviously if we bring in the people who just won the major, well, then we've got 5 best players in the world. 5 best players in the world means that we're all fucking sick, which means that the team is sick, which means that everyone else isn't sick, and best team in the world. Yeah, it's like, dude, can't.
Yeah, but
it's like we need a sick coach as well. Yanko's sick. Like, let's bring him on.
But the thing is that if you look at SK in 2017, that worked for them. Like they kicked that. Well,
but then they burnt out. Yeah. Like if you look at like the amount of LANs they played in consecutive fashion, like, I think almost elements of their run, like it was obviously impressive when you look at all the games by themselves. But if you look at the overall context of their run, it's not like they took like 4 months. Like it's not like they came off a player break twice and then went on this massive run. It was like come off player break. Like one out of 2 LAN.
You're talking like the sheer amount of tournaments was high, but the actual time period was low. Is what you're saying?
Well, yeah. And 5 LANs,
and then they just keep running. They just keep rolling this. And I always use the phrase in articles and hope no one like realizes or repeat it. But it's like the inertia of their own talent allows them to carry forward this momentum. Where it's like they're just so good that they can just like run themselves into the ground. And I think eventually that catches up with you. It's like how much of that time when you're going from like Sydney 1 week, Sao Paulo next week, Russia the week after that, how much of that time is looking around you and seeing where the current meta of the map is? How much of it is like am I doing the right thing in this duel, or am I Fur in 2017 and I'm just headshotting him? And I don't think there's that like widening of consciousness about things like I think their nades are good right now. I think their nades are actually better than a lot of other teams in terms of the way they think about it. But in terms of, their entire approach to the game, I think is like rooted in this idea of the past, and it's like still got that inertia of their own skill and thinking that they can carry it forward.
Yeah. The thing, another factor is that like a talented player in 2016 or 2017 is not that talented anymore. Like if you're looking at it, skill increases with times. Yes, in 2015 and 2014. I wish you could
see how like the anguish on my face when you say that. I just okay, go ahead.
Look at players like Olaf Meister, right?
Yeah.
Olaf Meister, best player in 2015. Is Olaf Meister one of the most skilled players in the world? Not a fucking chance. There are players on ends that are more skilled than Olaf Meister is.
I don't know if it's necessarily like the overall level. I think it's like there's some things like for example Zaiwu and Nico and Simple. I think the top end might be higher than the top end back then, but I think the overall more pressing thing is just like there's a higher quantity of players who are like a 7.5 out of 10, and then there's like a couple players who are 9 out of 10 rather than
that's what I mean. Like Sturgay, like at this point in time, is not a top 10 player in the world or anything like that. He's just a player on a top 20 team, but he's fucking sick compared to players in 2014. No, if you look at the players on Fnatic or you look at the players on NiP, the old guys, they're all of those players are pretty good. They're like them are great. And so even though I think Olaf Meister is still a very good player, but in terms of skill, he isn't. He's just pretty good, and he makes up for it in other ways. But like, there's just so many like for example, like in terms of skill, like even Device doesn't impress me. I think there's a lot of players that are more talented than him. On the off, but he's still very talented. But so
I like try to set it apart. Okay, I sorry to interrupt, but like as in terms of output, that's one factor. Raw skill, how impressive someone looks using the mouse and keyboard, is another factor, and then effectiveness, which is how well they set themselves up for the kill, is like a third factor. And then output is a like a middle ground between effectiveness and raw skill, right? And I think Device is an extremely effective player, but maybe not the most skilled, right?
Right, but I think the overarching thing, and this ties into your point, Sam, so you can jump off this, is it's like it's the way that you get all these players up to this level. And I wrote an article about this called like the Renaissance of Tier 2 Counter-Strike. It's twofold. First of all, you have to have a really, because to me, like Counter-Strike isn't this like linear set, like Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 1. Like it's not, it's a large web. It's like an ecosystem. And it functions like an ecosystem in the sense that if Astralis is the best team in the world and they're this apex predator, then it's like in order to beat them, you have to like raise your game. And in order for the teams below you to beat you who are trying to raise their game, it's like this incremental thing. It happens in jiu-jitsu schools all the time, where it's like a jiu-jitsu school that has 3 black belts, their blue belt will be able to beat another jiu-jitsu school who has like 1 black belt, just because you're going to get choked out like way more often, and you're going to be put under way more pressure as a lower level person in the jiu-jitsu gym that has more high level people at the top than you are at the other place. And so I think the fact that there's like a better top team influences overall the rise of individual skill, and also the resources and the infrastructure given to those lower tier teams, enabling them to actually chase down that pathway of trying to beat the teams above them. Because you have to think most of these teams, like an organization like Vitality, didn't exist fucking 4 months ago, and there's all these teams that have more money to actually finance.
Well, it did exist, just not in Counter-Strike.
Yeah, not in Counter-Strike, but you know what I mean. There's like way more organizations, and there's way more tournaments like Star Series where you can be a team like ENCE who doesn't win any fucking prize money and then suddenly win like $150,000 for first place.
So and also you've got players that have played CSGO their whole career now, right?
Yes,
like that's the kind of stuff that started with players sort of the age of Nico and things like that. Like all the French players are played in.
I think Rops is like a turning point for sure.
In terms of like one of them. Okay, but like look at Rops. Like Rops isn't a top player right now. Like he isn't even that. But in terms of raw skill, like he's amazing.
Yep.
And so when you're a player like JW, or you're like the one that's like, I watched a lot of Fnatic in the last few days, and the one that was glaring for me is Twist. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like Twist used to be looked at as like this. Oh my god, what a skilled player! Imagine
I think
what
he is though.
No. Like I think Twist is like Twist now looks way worse to me than he did 2 years ago. And
have you watched any of the Red Reserve games he was on? Because I like the.
Well, yeah, but whenever I watched Red Reserve or Godsent, I was looking at Brawlon. I was never looking at Twist. So
yeah, because there was like,
I don't know.
Like, watch some of the EU minor Red Reserve games because he was doing some shit. Well, I think it's the difference in system as well, in the sense like he was like able to do way more things free. Anyway, I'm messing with you,
right?
So.
But what I mean is like if you look at Twist before, Twist was considered like a high end, but now you look at him next to Brawlan, right? Who's 16-year-old, 17-year-old. Just new on Fnatic, and everyone's impressed with him because he's just more skilled than Twist is. Even though in terms of actually quality of play, I don't know if Brawlan is at this point much better than Twist is. But it's just like these players are so. So when you're like a player like Steel or a player like Lucas One or a player like Fallen, players that aren't Fallen is better than those two players. But it's just like when you're just mediocre, like or you were pretty good and now you're mediocre. Or you were very good and now you're pretty good. Like I just think that it's natural that those players, if they're relying, like if MIBR or let's say if SK is relying on flexing their individual skill, and they're like, oh, we've got Phelps, Fur, and Coldzera, and those three players are sick. And now you look at a bunch of teams that have comparable levels to those players on a raw skill output, they're going to lose a lot of those duels. So like, and that's obviously, I also think that there's a strategic level that I mentioned earlier, but like, that's just one of those things. Like I think Coldzera is still probably just as effective as he was before. When I look at him, I'm still like in awe at what he does. But when I look at Fur, when I look at Fallen, I'm just not like I see a pretty good player. But if I looked at them now without the nameplate, I'd be like, oh yeah, he's better than Shazam, but but that's but not much better than Shazam.
Wolby, can I segue this because this like ties perfectly into how I feel about Vitality in general.
Okay.
Right.
I didn't think we had time to talk about the French scene, but you skillful transition. Couldn't have done better myself.
But like ZywOo, for example, like the level he hit at this like DreamHack Atlanta thing, I think it's like the perfect representation of just like literally just like this young player, like not really tested on land, just straight hard carrying 4 okay-ish players to win a trophy. Like, I don't give a fuck about what anyone says about, like, Apex or MBK having, like, resurgences of form. They were okay. It's just this, like, one of the most ludicrous individual, like, one tournament events, like, performances ever from just this, like, young up-and-coming AWPer, which is a big asterisk.
I mean, has he ever played a big LAN before? I mean, this isn't a big LAN.
I don't even know.
No, he played on AAA. So, no, he definitely not. No.
And so, like, to me, he's the ultimate representation of what we're talking about in a lot of ways. Like, how this guy who, like, no one in the international scene, like, everyone knew of his name because of, that shit with the interview where he was like, yes, and it was, like, all being, like, retarded in French. And then, like, everyone knew about that, but, like, no one like knew about ZywOo. You know what I mean? Oh, it's ZywOo, isn't it? That's just the best shit ever.
Zywoo.
Oh, dude, that like when I saw that tweet from Nell, I was literally like, how do I pronounce it? And then I just put my my fingers like this, and I was like, ZywOo. I'm like, oh, I get it. That makes total sense. Like how you would say that in French.
Well, it's ZywOo. ZywOo. Yeah, ZywOo. Anyway. Yeah, like I wouldn't say it like that if I saw the name.
I'll just do the fucking American, like Z-wow, like just the fucking worst, like not even attempting.
Say Zero, like instead of Zai.
It's Brett Favre, it's Lake Pontchartrain. I'm fucking up all the French.
All right, let's talk about Vitality because they have a really nice jersey. So
okay, can I make one point? Can I make one point? Go ahead. One point before we get into this really sick discussion about Vitality's
jerseys.
You guys are going on. I let you guys get all your fucking points in. I was very quiet. You couldn't see my face. It was in anguish, but I received all your points, and I have just one counterpoint. I was in Atlanta this fucking weekend, and I watched all these tier 2 teams play, and it was not an impressive feat. You guys can go fuck yourselves. These teams aren't the most attractive, exciting teams to watch. This was badass. This was not badass Counter-Strike. Right. This was ass Counter-Strike, i.e. bad.
But you watched an Envy game though, dude. Like you can't be talking about it. You watched Envy. That's not comparison.
Yeah, to be fair, at Atlanta, it wasn't tier 2 CS. It was tier 3 CS. Okay.
Yeah, and dude, Envy's tier 5. So.
Tier 2. Yeah.
Like no.
I was having a conversation with someone. I was like, "How did they get here? Like, how did Envy get here?"
No, because tier 2 is like
they're invited.
I feel bad though, because when you look someone in the eye right after they lose and be like, "Hey, dude, can I get an interview?" and like, "No, dude, like, I'm getting an interview right now." It's like, "Oh, dude, I'm sorry." Like, shit. Like, I can see how much fucking pain you're in.
That happened at the Australian CS:GO event I went to. There was a team called Chiefs, and they had just caught a plane from New Zealand to Brisbane, which is where I live, and like on their time they'd caught the plane at like 3:30 in the morning, and there was a player on this Chiefs lineup who I knew real well, and I was like, "Oh, hey man, they just like won a big game," and I was like, "Hey dude," like really sort of excited to finally get a chance to talk to him. Like, "Could I do an interview with you?" And he just like looks up at me, doesn't say anything, just goes, "Nah, bro." Then just like walks away.
That's like my experience at Atlanta. Just like maybe later. Maybe later is like the best. Stuff. I love maybe later.
Yeah. But dude, I just want to say, like, if you had an actual tier 2 now is like, I'm looking at the top 10. You have like maybe LDLC, but like Optic, ENCE, Hellraisers, G2, like not Luminosity, Cloud9, and like whoever the fuck else, Ghost, and like those are not
isn't that
like,
bad. I made fun of Ghost earlier.
No, but Ghost is a good team for tier 3, and everyone's like, "Whoa, they're better than tier 3." You know, like of course this is great, but they're not a top 15 team. Yeah. So and they look dangerous to win this event as well. So which is a testament to the rest of the teams here. But okay, so can we talk about Vitality now?
Okay.
Well, like jumping in from that, it's like the fact of Vitality, and I made a tweet about this, like. The fact Vitality won this event and ZywOo had that fashion is obviously set against the fact that they were playing against tier 18 sides. And it's what? And then you compare that to LDLC's run, where they have 2 wins over top 10 opposition, you know? And then everyone's hyping up fucking ZywOo, and then there's no hype about LDLC. So it's like, what's going on here, Sam? Break it down to me. I'm so confused.
Sure.
Like, what?
So I've listened to a lot of French content in the last couple of weeks about these teams because they're coming out of the woodworks because their teams finally look like dog shit. Yeah. So, which is great. People were more excited about LDLC than they were about Vitality in France. People are have much more respect for that team. In fact, this is unreasonable, but people immediately before their thing before Liquid, a bunch of them said this is the best team in France, which is a testament to how shit teams in France are. But I mean, like, I think LDLC, the people like just don't have faith that they're going to be an amazing team with a high ceiling. I don't either. Like, someone at Vakram did an interview with Alex, who is their in-game leader. And, he said, during the interview, he's like, the HLTV rankings just came out and you're ranked number 12th. What do you think about that? And he's like, there's a long pause. And he's like, it's a little high.
Which is like so different than what an American team would say. It's like, yeah, man, we deserve to be up there. Top 10, that's where we're at. It's like, I don't know about that one.
So a rare piece of humility from the French scene. But I think Alex knows that this is like their best player is Amanek, and Amanek is not like it's like Amanek is maybe the best player in France right now, but that's only because there's no good players. I guess ZywOo is obviously.
I mean, at the end of the day, he only has played one LAN. We can't get that
right, but that's what I mean.
I remember
that's why
the Fitch
I don't
hype back in the day. How'd that work out?
Yeah,
with a what hype?
Fitch.
No, dude, this was different. Let's be real. There are some clips because I've watched pretty much every Vitality game from.
Did you watch Atlanta, that first one on Cash? That was pretty rough though. He didn't get it off.
Yeah, but didn't Happy have a big game? Yes. But like some of the things like that nuke. There's a one round on nuke, and it was against who they play in the semifinals. Faltering here. Complexity, like the third map on, and there's this clip with he has a pistol, he's a P250, and it's a 1v3, and it's like he's coming in from Annex, and there's a guy in Heaven, a guy at Squeaky, and a guy backside, and he has like 4 shots, and every single shot is like hits a person within the space of like a second. It just like flick, and then he like dinks the last guy, and if he had one more bullet, he would have killed him. Like, dude, that is like the things I saw. I was like in a cafe in a public place, and I go, "What?" like really loudly, as if like I got news about something. Like, dude, that's not allowed. Like, you can't be doing that.
And I like, there was an interview with the Vitality players before Atlanta, and they were like, "What do you think is cool about, you know, playing with w0xic? Because in the French scene, like, people have been waiting for years for him to come out and finally play a LAN." And he's like, and they actually said, like, you know, one of the best things about him is that he communicates like a pro. Like, he's a very good teammate. He's a very agreeable guy, even though he's so young. So it's a very good sign for him. My worry, not so much with his career.
Wait, real quick. That's like the most like mischaracterizing thing about like why you should be hyped to have like w0xic on your team. You know, it's like you're giving of why like you'd want him. It's like, oh yeah, he's like a nice guy. He's like makes us all laugh. You know, it's like meanwhile dropping like 45 frags. It's like, dude, you're not commenting on like the 3 1v4s he just won.
No, he did say that. I think NBK actually said, after he said he's a really nice guy, that next year he was going to be the best player in the world. So people, So what my worry with w0xic, and it's not a worry that he's going to choke at LAN or anything like that, but my comparable for him is w0xic. And I look at w0xic, and I look at w0xic at tier 2 LANs, not even, w0xic was at a tier 3 LAN, but at tier 2 LANs, and this guy is just, you know, molesting people like it's his passion.
That sounds like me joke about.
Okay, sorry.
No, dude, w0xic has a passion for molestation. That's the title of
So anyway, you're right. I shouldn't take I shouldn't take sexual abuse in vain, but still, you get the allegory. But w0xic against tier 1 players is good, but he's not, you know, he's not nearly as good as he is against tier 2 opposition.
Yeah, he's not non-consensually fisting people. It's just not happening. It's like
you don't know, but what's going on is that you don't get away with as much. You don't have as many options available to you with the op, especially when you're playing against better teams.
I agree.
And so, like, I don't know. I haven't watched all of the Vitality matches. I just watched the finals matches. And in the finals matches, I didn't think that w0xic was transcendent.
There was that round where he did a 1v5 eco ace that like won them the game.
No, but what I mean is I saw him like jump out of window through smoke and die to 2 people in underpass. Like, stuff like that where he was trying.
Talking about.
Yeah, so he had moments where he was missing shots, where he was trying to do things, and he looked human, and that's totally fine. Like, he still posted like an amazing rating for that. For that
second highest rated of the year, right? Like second highest rated single event of the year.
But I don't think, like, if I had to project his fragging count for, let's say, a tier 1 LAN, where let's say they play like 8 maps or something like that against, you know, top 8 teams, I would expect him to be more in the, you know 118 range than the 145 range.
Yes.
And that's still good. Like, that's around where w0xic is right now, and that's still good. The problem is that, like, what happens to Vitality once w0xic isn't, you know, posting simple numbers.
Yeah, and that's key, because you look at, like, especially their run. It's not like, even with w0xic like dropping, you know, the second highest individual rated performance of the year, comparable only to Simple's 2 best performances of his career. It's like they still only just managed to beat Complexity 2-1, you know? Where it's like, all right, well,
I was
like,
really
you're doing this.
And RPK and...
and it's like their T-side didn't blow me away at all. There was a bunch of things individually they were doing where I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is just a bunch of people that haven't played on LAN in ages, who are once really good, excited to play on LAN, and then being comfortable in that environment against people who might not be as comfortable in like a high pressure grand finals environment. Like I thought a lot of the CT play I saw from Vitality was really good in the sense of how the players knew how to move off each other, how to call for information. There seemed to be a lot of like synergy and the ability for people to play off each other on CT side. But in terms of like structuring pushes or having like a very deep T side that's capable of grinding back into a half when ZywOo isn't, because like it's not even like the comparison to Simple at DreamHack Winter last year was, I remember seeing Simple play at DreamHack Winter last year, and I wrote an article 2 days later saying that 2018 is going to be the year of Simple, because I was like, oh, well, like this entire team is structured around the best player of all time being the best player of all time. Like, of course, this is going to be an insane year for him. But when I see ZywOo at around roughly the same sort of point where it's like he has an insanely high individually rated event at a lower tier tournament, like heading into 2019, like to me, I'm exactly the same as you, Sam. I don't think ZywOo is going to be like transient, at least not on Vitality in 2019. I think he needs to have either a system that's like geared way more around him in the sense that's like, all right, Vitality goes, we're going to clearly structure our win conditions on T side around this insanely skilled player, and we're going to like drop, because he can AK as well, he can rifle as well, which is nuts. Like we're going to like drop him guns, we're going to actively force it, but at the same time, he's also this very young player that's sitting amongst four others who might not be as willing to like sacrifice themselves to this entity.
No, so, I think that I don't think you'll see a problem in terms of like, I think those players, because none of those players were like the best player on their team or, you know, the stars, I think they're pretty used to, you know, like giving away stuff. And the way that I heard them talk about it over multiple interviews, they know that this is their best player. Like they just, you just think it's obvious.
Can we also just talk like how they just have him on that team? Like how is it that even is a thing? Like,
it's very bizarre the French scene right now. That's sort of why I wanted to get to with the premise of this episode.
There's a reason that Vitality picked up, or that Vitality had the luxury of getting him. And the reason they ended up getting him is because he was finishing his school, and so he got offers from other teams. I think like
FaZe
now has said, well, okay, Nell is a bit misleading when he says this.
I love this because I'm super mad at Nell because he said something bad about MSL.
No, it's not that. It's because I've heard Nell on different, like, I know I saw his tweet, but he also mentioned it on a podcast where he was a little clearer, and so FaZe considered getting ZywOo. They did not. I don't think they offered him a contract or something like that. So that is different. That is very different because I'm sure that FaZe consider a lot of players.
Yeah.
So.
But the key thing is, Sam, is like, it's one of those things where, like, I watched his game. I don't know any of the hype around ZywOo. Like, I didn't. All I knew was that he was like this young player that AWPs and he's on Vitality. I didn't watch any Vitality VODs. I watched like that Complexity series, and afterwards I'm like, oh, well, he's like someone that I would have to have on my team if I was a French team. Like 100%, like I have to have him on my team.
It's very bizarre that G2 didn't get him, right? Because they seem to have a tier 1 talent, right?
Well, the thing is, when they assembled the roster, at the time he wasn't available, and so they picked up. You know, like they settled for Kenny S, I'd say. I don't think they thought of it as settling. But the criticism that people in the French scene had for G2 is that like 3 months ago, you know, when that team assembled, they were still early in their roster, the G2 team. So they didn't have to make a move. There was no pressure for them to make a move. But they should have seen, oh, Kenny S isn't the best player in the world. Oh, this player could be the best player in the world. Let's pick up this player. They didn't. I think personally that's understandable because you look at Kenny S and you still think, okay, well, he might not be the best player in the world right now, but he might be. Eventually, he might be the best opper. And also, he's proven. Like, ZywOo might not be as good as Kenny S is. And now you might think, oh, well, he's good on land. It seems he seems to have no trouble. So we don't know yet, but they didn't even have that to go off.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a key thing. Because, like, if I was a French team right now, like, could you imagine, like, if LDLC had the option? Because in my head, it's just one of those things where it's like, there's like secret USBs being passed around. It's like, dude, have you seen this guy's fucking demos, bro? Like, what the?
No, everyone did.
Dude, he just dropped 60. And that's the other key thing as well with Vitality. And sometimes when my friends, like, they just started like playing Counter-Strike, and they're trying to grind matchmaking. They're on like Gold Nova 1 or whatever. And because, you know, they have this foolish idea that because I watch a lot of Counter-Strike, I can like actually try to help them climb matchmaking. They're like, how do I like get better? And then my advice is always sort of like a bit tongue-in-cheek, but a bit true as well. It's like, dude, if you drop 40 kills, your team will win the game. Like if you just like get 30 plus kills, the chances that you win the game is so much higher than it would be if you didn't. And like z0wu just gets 30 kills, and then everyone, you know what I mean? Like what's the plan beyond that?
But,
like he just gets kills.
But my worry is that like if you're not making set plays to get those kills, like I just like when I watch him, I just see like people walking in his crosshair a lot of the time, and that's great, sure. But you're not going to get quite as many kills if people aren't going to walk in your crosshair that often. You have to play like Device. Like you have to really work hard to find picks and to find openings. Sure. You have to play different.
And you have to work. The team has to work hard as well to like get to that space, because it was way more like Vitality were winning rounds off of the space z0wu created, rather than Vitality working to give space to z0wu.
So like think about how much Simple and Navi and Astralis and Device work to make those players have 1.30 ratings. Yeah. They work incredibly
But to get
hard.
Nitro above 1 rating, like think how hard Liquid has to work, you know?
So I just think, I don't know, it's not, but to be fair to the other teams, like everyone knew that z0wu was going to be the best player in France probably. And
to be honest, like I'm surprised that this hasn't come. I feel insulted that someone like didn't inform me that this player was like capable of doing this. Like I feel like, or any of us, like I feel like you, Sam, I'm blaming you. Like you should have been like, dude, this guy is like insane. Like he's so insane. I can't get my head around.
I'm not gonna name names, but there's some people in the Twitterverse who are just like fucking tyrannical cheerleaders who just like poison your brains. Like, no, you don't understand. This guy, this 16-year-old from Belgium, is a transcendent player. And you like watch him, it's like, oh, he's like good at online games. Sure. It's like, fuck off. Right. Like, you can't chase all these rumors down. Also, no. I hate watching online games.
Yeah, and I guess that's like it proves that like z0wu is like just this exception to the rule, where it's like what he's doing on LAN is what everyone says like a young player is going to do on LAN. It's like, dude, have you heard of a play called Roka? Like he's going to drop 1.5 on LAN. It's like, oh, sick, dude.
Jeez. Yeah, Roka.
Who's the best? I mean, I don't know. Is Xantares really that good? Like, because the people.
Yeah, dude. I was talking to some quick anecdote about Xantares. I was talking to some Australian CS players who scrimmed because the way the scrims work, it's like the way that they're lined up, they only could like scrim space soldiers for they scrim space soldiers like 11 times over the course of 2 weeks or something.
God.
Yeah, I wasn't listening that well, but I was like, oh, is Xantares like good? And they're like, dude, he like drops 50 in scrims. I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, like he's insane. Like I've never played against a player like him. Like, dude, when he doesn't care and he just runs around the map, like he's fucked. Like you can't do anything.
Yeah. Xantares has played a lot of lands. So like,
but he hasn't been like transcendent on LAN though.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
He has a couple.
To be fair, I haven't given enough.
No, he has been very good. But when I say very good, like he's like similar numbers to what Ethan has been posting up. Not like I don't think when people talk about Xantares, they say like, oh, this guy's gonna be the best player in the world. He's like, oh, this is one of the best.
This guy is like a future superstar or like superstar-esque quality.
Yeah,
possibly.
So sort of like what you'd think of peak config, like that kind of level.
That makes sense.
What you would want out of Xantares. Yeah. But he different, and it's hard to tell when you're hearing people describe him because people talked the same way about Brolan as they did about Xantares. And Brolan is very good, but Brolan is not, a 150 player, and he probably never will be.
Oh, okay.
So I think that z0wu's got probably. I think, like, I legitimately think just because he's an operator, it has to do with it too, because it's easier to get an offer than
yes, 100%.
And that always has to be taken into account. But I think he's got the opportunity to like just in the next 6 months be one of the best players in the world. Like that's just like
yes, I agree. I think this will be the staging point for like eventually when FaZe like Guardian retires, and then FaZe just comes in with that fucking YouTube money. That's oh dude, you watch, mate. This is gonna be time stamped, and I'm gonna be called like a god. This is
I'm sure that FaZe would want him, but I don't think.
I just don't get why FaZe doesn't upgrade Kerrigan if they're not going to have him in lead.
Hey, hey Scott, hey motherfucker, if you talk about MSL and Kerrigan like in this podcast just because you like made physical contact with the dad,
I never talked to him actually.
But did you look into his eyes?
Yeah.
Did you look into?
We didn't make eye contact. I was definitely appraising his every move, but.
Yeah, but
just like tweeting, like look at the way he walks, every single step calculated, just like his macro structure.
I think. Can we just talk about? We haven't talked about Vitality as a team, really.
For sure, it's not.
I don't want to talk. Like no, because I'm actually like I'm into this team. This team's caught.
God, Sam.
No, but like
sweet Canadian child, you can't like.
But
because everything everything we were just talking about before, like in terms of how closely contested individual skill is at the level Vitality want to compete at.
Absolutely.
And there was a key thing. There's a key detail between LDLC and Vitality, and that's that like Vitality probably isn't going to be invited to a bunch of LANs. Like they'll need to qualify online for a lot of these LANs, and it's so fucking hard to qualify for shit online. Whereas LDLC, like they played, I think, I can't remember what it was, but I think they averaged 3 online matches a day for like 2 weeks, and that's how they got to Chicago, and like that's how they won these online qualifiers because they grind.
They just got invited to.
They just grind.
Yeah, and they said actually, like I was listening to an interview with that X, as I said, and he said like, oh yeah, we just played a bunch of online cups so that we could game our HLTV rating, so that we would get higher ratings and get invites, and they just got an invite. So like
DreamHack Winter,
yeah. So I for sure. And by the way, both Vitality and LDLC have yet to qualify for the close qualifier for the minor. So those two teams have struggled deeply to get past like those fucking random ass teams, and like it's such a sketch fucking system. I hate it, but whatever. I get it. I get why it exists the way it does, but it's just the worst. But I think I think legitimately, like, I think
what's a realistic expectation for Vitality?
I think they could be better than LDLC. I think.
Oh yeah.
And that's not particularly bold, I guess. Yeah. But how about this? No. Like, I think that they could be as good as NIP. Like,
shut your fucking mouth.
I'm down on NIP. But
but that's what I mean. Like, if
like
you take
top
NIP
10-ish,
to be like 11, 12.
Yeah.
Like good for some playoffs or some upsets in series, but not a contender by any means. Like I
don't think they'll be in the top 15 straight up.
Like I think they'll struggle.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has to go in that comes into play as to whether or not teams make it. Like if you don't make it to LAN, you're just not going to get a rating.
Exactly. Like that's why I don't think they'll be a good team. Like I think they'll play one LAN every 3 months and just get like
I don't think
one best of 3 win.
I don't think so. I think that I was pretty impressed with Apex at this tournament. Yeah. I'm very biased because I've always really liked Apex, but I thought that he played the way that he needed to style on people that were much worse than he was.
It's like, but like anyone can play well when you have someone that has a 1.5 rating on LAN, and it's like. All those players on paper should be shitting on Complexity and LG to begin with. Like there was nothing outside
of
bad.
They're not that bad players.
Like I thought Def was pretty good, but in terms of like
Def, Stanislaw,
but like what's Complexity real level?
Players.
But like is Complexity a top 10 team? Are they a top 15 team? Like we're a Complexity.
They're a top 20 team.
Yeah, and so that's probably where Vitality is going to sit.
What are you talking? Wait, whoa, guys! I'm absolutely certain that Complexity are a top 8 team because they made top 8 at the major.
Yeah, true. Yeah, how could I forget that?
Weren't you both hyping Complexity like two
Yeah,
episodes
I
ago.
was. I was, yeah. But like
I
after
thought
seeing
that
them,
they could be a top 15 team.
3
And-
fucking games on Inferno. Like, I know that's like really simplistic, but like at some level, it's like best of ones,
No, I
all
think-
Inferno. Like you have to
But
like.
I think
scratch your
we
head
talked
on
about this, but like I think that I thought that they would be a top 15 team. They haven't been that, but that has.
No.
But it's like they're not terrible. They're still fine.
They're not
Like,
terrible.
yeah,
it's not far from where people I think expected them to be afterwards. Like,
yeah. Like I thought
so-
Jeff had a great event from.
Yeah, so so for example, they're probably better than Cloud9 right now. Like that's like, and
Yeah.
I know Cloud9 isn't very good, but it's still like okay, they're not shit. They didn't disappear. They're
Yeah,
still
but dude,
fine.
Sam, me, you, Scott, Ranissa from Rivalry, and fucking Dust could form a CS:GO team. Probably be better than Cloud9 right now.
No, I don't think so. But anyway, like I think Vitality could
I like
be
how
a pretty good
Renissa
team.
from Rivalry just gets brought up. People have no idea who that is. They have no idea like why she's bringing it up.
Yeah. Like when I see that team, I see a team that has like because of the players that they have. They have some players that will take advantage when they're playing against teams that are worse than they are. So when I look, for example, when I look at Optic and I look at players like Cajun B, like I'm like Cajun B is a great player on this team, but he isn't a player that's going to style on like I don't know heroic. Like he's not going to style on heroic, but Apex and z0xic can style on the players.
I agree.
So before this LAN, those Vitality players that weren't called z0xic had really bad ratings, and they were not playing very well individually online. But I think that they have a lot. I'm sure they felt nervous about this LAN, and they were like, "Okay, we're supposed to win this LAN, but like we so easily could lose it." I think
they came out in the first game too.
Yeah, but then they recovered. They're playing pretty well, and so I think they're going to be much more confident online. Watch them lose every qualifier they enter, but like I think they'll do better.
That's reasonable, actually. Yeah, that's reasonable.
So and
but
even,
like I think
even RPK, like I think RPK is one of those players that can like obviously he's not been amazing, but he's
bizarre.
also like. But he's also the anchor on this team. Like he's not going to get a great rating.
No.
But I've seen him make aggressive plays that really punished him. As
like
an anchor.
that's what he's meant to do, right? But like the point is that I want to get at is like when you look at this team, like MBK and Happy are both like okay players, but they're not like imbued with agency. They're not these playmakers in any sense. And I think RPK is a middle of the pack, like T side and CT side player for like a tier 2 team. Like I think he's just okay, probably relative to the level. And I think Apex is an above average player for tier 2, and I think z0xi's like a superstar player for that region. And that billing, like that on paper structure, is not something to me that's like, oh well, this team's like a guaranteed like 12th best team in the world. That to me is like, oh, that's just another tier 2 team that has like a superstar and just like
what tier 2 player. Team has a superstar though?
I remember I was looking at it a while ago.
Oh, Xantares. I guess we just talking about.
Yeah, like Xantares,
Space Soldiers, Hellraisers,
and
fair enough.
Okay, well, Sergey's level is much below those players. I think
he's clearly the superstar that, like in terms of like the way the team's structured. Like it's clearly he's the number 1 player on that team.
It is sort of weird how they're sort of those 3 teams are all sort of like in the swamp of 15 like ish, but then like all these other teams like NRG. I don't know if you call Ethan a superstar or Nip or Fnatic. You'd call Ethan a superstar?
Yeah, compared to the players we just named, like compared to like Ethan's much more proven now than Xantares has ever been. Okay. Ethan is better than Sergey. Ethan is more proven than z0xic, even though he's probably not as good. But Ethan's one of the best riflers in the world. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I think like a top 10 player maybe.
Well, I don't even know if he's top 10 player. I mean like top 10 rifler, but that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like he's in the range of one of the best riflers in the world. And that's like and Breezy, I'm less sold than other people are on Breezy, but
I think a superstar is like 3 to 6, or 1 to 6 or 1 to 5.
No, but you need to say like superstar, like the way he was using it to the level they're at, right?
Yeah.
So for example, like for a top 8 team, NRG has an incredible player, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a number one team, no.
Yeah.
But that, you know, it's sort of hard to,
Yeah.
you know, it's like
for example, I don't think Astralis has a superstar player relative to the level. I think they just have 5 players that are all incredible that play greater than the sum of their parts. Whereas, like, very clearly the teams from like 2 to 6 all have their superstar players relative to that level. I think with like each tier, the general like billing, especially when you think of the past, like you think like AGO, like Snatchy was very clearly that player, like Ents, like Sergey, like there's every single time a tier 2 team makes a run at a big event, there's like very clearly like one standout player that everyone gets hyped behind. Then in like 3 months' time, they either like have another middling land performance and get picked up by a team. And now I'm just thinking of like Snatchy's storyline, but in general, I think like there's nothing, because it'd be different if Vitality came out and the way they saw their teaser, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like and I'm like sort of watching it as if I was listening to a jazz record. I'm like, oh yeah, this is like fucking some spicy friendship. Okay, yeah, like what they're doing, but it wasn't like that. I was like, oh, this is just ZWoo dropping 30. Like,
yeah, okay, this is a thought that I had, which is, I think that this team could be legitimately good if they played like Team Liquid or if they played like Fnatic. But worry
there's no
here,
sign that
right, or even like if they played like Mouse. Like I think that there's something there if they were creative. But
yes,
I
same problem as MIBR.
Yeah, sure, but MIBR doesn't have a superstar impact.
No.
Player. Like I know they have Cold Zero, but Cold Zero is just, we don't know, he's not that kind of player. So, but I don't know. I still like, what worries me is that NBK and Happy are their leaders. Like,
the key thing is as well is like what the main like foundation of my argument is I don't think that they're going to be able to qualify for a bunch of lands. Like I think they will struggle to consistently get onto land, and like I've sort of like feel more shaky on that point because I agree with you. They probably will have a lot more confidence going into those online matches after just straight winning Atlanta. So maybe like I'll be a bit flaky on that, but like if they can get to LAN, I think that they're definitely capable of like not getting blown out.
But
just
even if
by
they
the
get
way
to
that
LAN, they can just run into an NRG and MIBR amount.
Oh yeah, they're never winning
just
like
get
a best of 3.
crushed in the group stage and just like I mean, it's just completely about luck. I mean, it's very rare that someone has a run like LDLC had where they beat. I mean, North.
Yes,
I don't rate North because they don't have MSL, but I think that win over NRG. I don't know if you guys watched that series closely, but I was watching it before this episode. I thought it was kind of fluky. Like that overpass second half, like their T side, it seemed like very lucky in that they just sort of missed. I don't know. It could have been mad preparation on the part of Alex, or however I'm supposed to say that with a French accent. But yeah, it just seemed very fluky in that the stacks and aggression of NRG was missed, and LDLC sort of just hit this pocket where they avoided the aggression.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, they had said, their coach had said that they didn't even expect to be very good on overpass. They kind of lucked into it, but I'm not reliable on that.
All right, the equivalent, the complexity equivalent of like winning 3 games on Inferno is that's like a great sign of a fluke. The equivalent for LDLC is they lost their own map pick.
Yes,
a lot. Yeah, in those first 3 best of 3s they won, they lost their own map pick. I forget who their first best of 3 was, but I definitely know they lost their map pick versus North and NRG. So
yeah, they did.
So maybe a good way of reframing it is like I think people will be surprised as to how close LDLC, like how if you look at the number of lands LDLC and Vitality play over the next 6 months, I think people will be very surprised about how close that number is. And then like the success at those lands,
I don't think it's going to be a huge difference.
I think it might edge towards Vitality, but
the thing, like one thing that I don't think people realize that this lineup, both lineups actually, but especially the LDLC lineup, has been together for a really long time. They've been together for like 6 months or something like that, and they had a really hard time. And
we also have to look at the age of players like Logan and stuff. Like they've been together for a long time, but it's not like they're 4 veteran players like Vitality. Like they're still a young team, even if they've been together for a while.
No, sure, I guess, but LDLC, that core has been together. Alex, Logan, and Toy New, I think, were all together when Existence was there. I know that Idex was there before Existence. So like those players, like they're just not awesome players. So if you look at them and then you look at w0xic and Amanek, like Amanek is okay. I think Amanek's like a real player. He's a good player, as Mike Blackhawk would say. But otherwise, I just see a whole lot of meh.
Yeah,
and so
that
I
was
think,
impressive.
And you don't see that in Vitality outside of Zawu?
But one, I think that the overall level of those other four players, I think Apex is better than anyone on LDLC, except for Amanek. I still think MBK is pretty good. Like,
yeah,
I don't think.
I don't know.
There was one round that really impressed me from MBK in Overpass and Bathrooms where he like just 3K'd. Must have been Rogue, yeah, because I was super sad when I saw the round, because MSL, Hiko, all the fan favorites. I actually think Six has sort of gotten undercut by just reality. He's not a bad player. He's just like hasn't been on the right team. But yeah, sad times. MBK got 3K in that round, just spraying down rogue player after rogue player.
He's been pretty good. So like I would say that NBK could be like on the same level as like someone like, this is completely different style, but someone like JW when he's rifling. Like, see, like JW when he's rifling. I know this is weird. It's because I'm
trying to triangulate this in my brain.
yeah, same, dude. It's like, all right, bro.
It's because I watched so much Fnatic in the last.
Just fucking crowbarred that in so hard.
No. But what I mean is like, okay, how about this? Like someone like Cajun B. Like someone who's a pretty good rifler, even someone like in terms of rifling, someone like Zipex, right? Like that kind of level of rifler, I can see that out of NBK. So I think that he's a pretty good player. I think that what I'm worried about is I'm not sure if he's the kind of player that can be your third best player. Like it might be that he has to. Yeah, I think he might be your fourth best player on a good team. But RPK is definitely not, just because of the role he's playing. He's definitely not going to be a superstar on this team unless something magical happens.
So what you're saying is that like MBK is sort of like if Cold Zero was in 2016, but like a bit more aggressive, and then if he functioned the same way as Apex did on the NV roster.
So
it's hilarious. He's like, yeah, Fur will never recover. Game's changed, but I think MBK and RPK are going to make a huge comeback.
How about this? I think that if you took them like in the next 5 months or whatever, this might be terrible but in the next I'm regretting this immediately. In the next 5 months, Apex will be just as good as Fur. Okay?
Wow, dude. Okay, I'm down with that.
I'll take that. I'll take it. What do you want?
That's how I feel. Okay.
Yeah. That's like the ultimate thing where it's like just last resort, just like these are my feelings towards Fur, and these are my feelings towards the Vitality roster. You cannot like argue with them. This is just how I feel. Boys. Like,
all right. Unlike Vitality, I am feeling lethargic. I have to get up in the morning, so let's just end the podcast there.